This is a relay project.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jesperson.
On this Wednesday, January 11th, we welcome you to Real Talk. Thanks for making time for us. Ryan Jesperson, John Hicks in the house.
Good morning.
It's nice to see your face.
And nice to see you as well.
I like that I walked in the studio today. Of course, John's already here hard at work, preparing the studio for in-studio guests.
Not hard
we'll
work.
introduce. I'm trying to pump your tires, pal.
Fun
And
work.
I wanted to give you credit. I walk in the door, and the first thing you say to me is, how are you doing mentally, physically, and professionally?
Yeah, because I feel like guys especially do this all the time. How you doing? Good. And that's it.
Or how you doing, and then keep
Yeah.
walking and don't even wait to hear the response.
And you did have some things on your mind, so
I did.
you
And
got
I
them
felt
off your
like-
chest.
Yeah, I couldn't get the car started this morning. And so I said, well, John, as a matter of fact, since you asked, and it felt good to kind of bitch to somebody for a
Yeah,
minute.
could see
And
it
so
on
I
your face.
appreciate that. Coming up in about a half an hour from now, really looking forward to this conversation. Professor Timothy Caulfield is going to join us over Zoom. This is, it's not like funny, but it's funny. On the show a couple of days ago, if you watched Monday, if you tuned in on Monday, Charles Adler and I started kind of like waxing about how we felt, or how a specific news story was landing with us. In particular, vaccine requirements for organ transplant recipients, or at least those that even want to be on the wait list. And I was ruminating about it, and I thought it kind of struck me as weird. Now, I've championed the vaccines. I do champion the vaccine. You should get vaccinated. I hope you do. I did. My family did. And I think that it's really important. But it kind of struck me as a little bit, I don't know, a bit of a red flag or a talking point or something. It rubbed me the wrong way that people are getting bumped off wait lists because they're not vaccinated. And we didn't have all the facts. We didn't have all the background, but like regular people do when they start talking to each other, we started talking about it, and it lit a fire under you real talkers. And so on Tuesday's show, yesterday, we got into a whole bunch of your emails, and we checked in with one of our audience members, our community members, Dr. Bradley Martin, who told us about patients in his practice that have had organ transplants and have gone through the process, and he shared that insight. Well, today, Professor Caulfield's going to join us, and John, on December 28th, so like 2 weeks ago, he published a paper, a research letter for the JAMA Network that specifically looks at news coverage of COVID-19 vaccination requirement for organ transplant and the implications it's had on public attitudes. It's perfect. The table has been set for this conversation, and so I'm really looking forward to that. So that's going to be Professor Caulfield coming up in about 25 minutes' time here on the show. In the meantime, I want to introduce you to two friends of mine, but I can't tell you many details. I can tell you that they're on their way to Ukraine, but we can't say when in specifics. And we can't say where they're going exactly because, quite frankly, their personal well-being, their safety's at risk. They're volunteers, and boy, are they ever doing unbelievable work with Firefighter Aid Ukraine. As you're listening to this, or as you're watching, you can check out their website, firefighteraid.ukraine.com. It's a pleasure to welcome to the Real Talk studio, Kevin Royle and Nikki Booth. Good morning to both of you, and thanks for being here.
Good morning.
Yeah, where are you? Are you coming from the fire hall this morning?
No, I'm on vacay.
You're on vacay.
By the stubble, yeah.
Yeah, but you don't do vacay.
No,
you
I don't do vacay. No.
Vacay for a lot of people is like flip-flops and sand
No.
between their toes, and for you it's fundraising
Yep.
and logistics. And I mean, obviously, let me encourage both of you. We got the coffees going. Let's just hang out, interrupt each other, and just tell stories. How did Firefighter Aid Ukraine get started, and what's it all about?
Over 10 years ago, I went to Ukraine with a Rotary Group Study Exchange, and it was focused on emergency services. And I went over as a firefighter, and I got to see what the conditions were like over there. And I came home and I wanted to do something about improving them. They were firefighters, had no tools, no equipment. They were using archaic stuff. Like the trucks were literally from the Soviet era, so was their bunker gear. And when I came home, I wanted to try to do something to improve the conditions over there, so those guys could go home safe to their families.
So this is way before Russia's aggression on Ukraine.
Over 10 years ago. And the project's been going for 9 now. And we started shipping over equipment over there with the help of the Rotary Club, communities, different companies. Yeah.
Like you've even shipped like trucks over there. When you talk about equipment, you've shipped a ton of stuff, haven't you?
Not to Ukraine. We just shipped a truck to Lebanon.
Okay.
So we help out other places around the world, but we focus on Ukraine.
Okay.
But X-ray machines, firefighter bunker gear, extrication tools, stabilization equipment. I think, what are we at, 200 and...
So I said we were about 240 with our most recent shipment for the...
Tons.
Yeah, tons.
240
Sorry.
tons.
240 tons. So
Yeah.
85 of those were before the war. And then the remaining amount has been in the last, 11 months?
Nikki, how did you get involved?
Well, obviously I know Kevin from when I worked at Edmonton Fire, and in March I reached out to go and help in the warehouse and saw Kevin for the first time in 14 years and said, hey, do you need help with your comms with this? And
Yeah.
he said yes, and within a week I was on the board.
Because you were a PIO with Edmonton Fire back in the day,
Yeah.
public information officer, right? So
Yeah.
so basically you would be the person that in big downtown tower fires, you would be there dealing with the media liaison.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, I went to everything I could because, I like going into situations like that. So I feel very blessed that Kevin's welcomed me on board and is getting me to go to Ukraine with the group. So great.
And so you're obviously tasked, I mean, with a lot of things, if I understand your role correctly, but it really in helping Canadians understand exactly what's going on here and what some of the challenges are and how they can help.
Absolutely. I mean, we're always looking for donations, and we know that sounds daunting because everyone's asking for donations. But what we've said is, before, in the morning, so anyone that's heading out to go to Starbucks or Tim Hortons or anywhere today, give us.
They're not a sponsor.
No. But if you're going for your morning coffee and you're not making it at home, why don't you go to our website and donate that $5 or $8 or $10 or whatever. And it adds up. It does make a difference. And something like that allows us to buy a tourniquet or gauze and send it over. And you're literally saving a life with just $10 out of your pocket.
I'm browsing the photos you guys have. Just a ton of media up at on Facebook. Just people can search Firefighter Aid Ukraine, or again they can check out the website. I feel like some of my questions might be a little bit obvious, but I think that the general public would be really interested. For example, like how did things change with regards to need, with regards to some of these life-risking scenarios that these first responders are in over there once the Russian aggression started, once this war started? What changed?
It was bad before the war, with the lack of equipment or the type of equipment they had, but now the severity is just exponentially increased. The number of incidences is through the roof. It's involving, like we're talking about buildings coming down. We're talking about dozens of people being injured in a blast attack. Like it's rocket attacks, drone attacks on infrastructure. They're taking their toll. So it's the number and the severity of these incidences that's really caused a huge amount of problems, and the lack of equipment.
So for a lot of these first responders, in particular firefighters, if I'm understanding the story correctly, they're not like professional firefighters, so to speak.
Yeah, they are, but now the civilians are being drugged into it.
Well, that's what I mean, is like there's a lot of people that put it this way: a year ago, we're not firefighters.
Yeah, or first responders, right?
Yeah.
So, and when things are happening around you, people need to react. So this first trip that Nikki's going on, I'm not going on this one. We need to keep our group small and nimble, and the strain of resources, we have to really take that into account too over there. So we've assembled a great team to go over there and teach NATO-based TCCC, which is Traumatic Combat Casualty Care. So that's stopping deadly bleeds, it's stopping blast injuries, it's treating airway management and stuff like that. So civilians are being drugged into this, and people, like you just said, that may not have been in that role 6 months ago. So we're going over there to train more first responders in that type of care.
How are you preparing for something like this?
I mean, I have a great team that I'm going with. Plus, we have an amazing team that's supporting us back home here, Kevin and the crew. And then we've got amazing hosts that are supporting us there. So really, I mean, I'm reading up about TC3 so that I can help in the classroom, and I'm learning all kinds of things. So I feel like that's really...
I mean, just to point out the obvious, you're going into a war zone.
I know, but...
she's going with an ex-Joint Task Force 2
Yeah.
medic. She's going with an ex-Princess Patricia Canadian Light Infantry medic.
But it's heavy stuff.
Both now firefighters.
Sure, but I mean, the thing is you can. I think fear is interesting with this because I say to people, I'm not afraid, and I know that sounds like, oh, she's naive, oh, she's downplaying it, but I'm not afraid. A, because I have a great group of people, but B, when you go and look at the pictures that we share on our Facebook page, Ryan, like the need outweighs the fear. Somebody has to go. These people need help, and we need to help these, first responders save lives. Somebody has to go, and if you give in to fear and you get overwhelmed by all of the risks and everything else, people won't go. And I think the need is the most important thing right now. So you just, I just don't overthink it. We're going.
Let's not kid ourselves. We're taking precautions. We have extrication plans and backup extrication plans.
Absolutely.
We have extra PPE. We've selected sites that are strategic for us.
Yeah.
And you can't. I mean, not that you can't share these details. It's almost interesting. Like you were prepping me for the interview,
right,
saying here are the things that we would prefer that you not ask us about.
Right.
But it's reiterating to me what might already be obvious or apparent, which is the danger here involved.
When I know how well we're being taken care of, both by the deployment team, by all the leaders within Firefighter Aid Ukraine and our hosts. I mean, you take every precaution you can, you be very aware of the risks, and then you just go and do it, right?
This is an interesting comment. Does the name Lauren Corbett mean anything to you? Yeah, you know Lauren. He's a great friend of the show. He was a district chief, I think, wasn't he?
He was one of my chiefs, yeah.
Was he?
Yeah.
Really? Well, he joins us on the live chat, and it's amazing to have Lauren here. And he says, I'd be interested in both of your response. He says, it's heartbreaking to pack boxes of medical supplies, stretchers, and other equipment, knowing they're going to a war-torn country and will be used on victims of war.
Yeah.
Is that something that washes over you as you...
Victims of war isn't necessarily soldiers. It's civilians.
Yeah.
Like, civilians are being targeted.
And children. Like, honestly, we put up a post on our Facebook page that are photos from what's going on, and there is a family, and it gets me every time, that there's a family running into an emergency room holding their child. And it's very clear that that's probably not going to be a positive outcome. And then a few pictures later, that child has passed, and you can tell. And then there's also a little girl who's had her legs blown off. I mean, it's weighty stuff. There's no doubt about it. But who you have to help. I don't, be the change you want to see in the world. I know that sounds really corny maybe to some, but like we're doing something.
Oh, this is the real deal.
Yeah. So
it doesn't get more real than this.
No. And so that's why we want people to help us with donations, like I said before, because we can buy that equipment, we can ship it over there, and it makes a huge difference. And like Lauren says, it's been X-ray machines, it's been tourniquets, first aid kits, hospital beds, intubation tubes. It's
anesthesiologist machines.
Yeah.
Like we're talking big equipment.
Is this all being coordinated? Like, do you coordinate this with, I don't even know, like, are you coordinating this with like Canadian Foreign Affairs? Are you through Edmonton Fire, City of Edmonton, Government of Alberta?
We have some great connections with the provincial and federal government. They assist where they can, but their hands are tied in many ways. They got to stay in their own lanes. We don't receive funding from the provincial or federal government, but we do receive assistance in other ways, other resources. But yeah.
Okay.
And actually, the municipal government's been tremendously supportive too. We were able to conduct dry runs with Ukrainian-speaking, people of different.
Yeah, displaced and immigrated Ukrainians came to an event that we did on December 10th, where we took our trainers and we took our linguists, and we did a trial run of all of this.
Yeah, so the trainers could have experience training people that don't speak English or speak little English through translation, through translators, linguists.
But that must have been a powerful experience for people that are like new to Canada, that are participating in something.
Yeah.
But I think
that support came from the city.
Yeah, and
they allowed us to use their resources.
Absolutely, and we're very grateful for that. But also, we've had a lot of displaced Ukrainians come and volunteer at the warehouse to pack things. So they've really shown up to support what Firefighter Aid Ukraine is doing, and then you have conversations with them. And if that doesn't motivate you to want to do more, it's very personal, and you get really connected.
Yeah, our project's given just local people too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Edmontonians, Albertans, an outlet to help as well.
Wow. So, I mean, the call to action here is for people to support. I mean, primarily by way of donation, right?
Well,
like that's number one. I mean,
volunteering.
And volunteering.
You can use sort of human power, getting the pallets packed and all that kind of stuff. And do you head over with like on a big cargo flight, or you fly commercial, or how does that work?
We did. Our first flight, we rented a plane and packed it, and that was a surreal experience.
I bet.
Yeah, this is only our fourth trip to Ukraine since the war started.
Well, there's been other people with our organization have gone over.
Okay, because you're constantly sending missions over. Is that right? Every month or so?
Yeah, we're always sending. We have a new strategy. We use we work with Nova Ukraine and Gloco and a few other carriers. To ship stuff over on empty space and passenger jets.
And are you buying like bunker gear for the civilian that doesn't know? Bunker gear is like what firefighters wear when they're fighting fires. It's the helmets, and the yellow stuff, the fireproof suits. Like, so are you buying that off municipalities that are
in most cases we get it
retiring
donated? We have an expiry date on stuff here in Canada and North American
and we've done
standards.
almost 10,000. Yeah, almost 10,000.
9,800 sets of bunker gear, and they cost to buy 2,500 to $5,000 a piece.
Yeah.
Helmets are a couple $100, and when things expire, there's still life left in them. We're able to.
It's better than wearing nothing,
more.
Right?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, so in some cases it can be new. Like we have the petrochemical industry is huge. They have their own fire departments in the refineries, and they don't use their equipment, but it expires, and they send it to us. And in a lot of cases, it's never seen an incident ever. But
never seen a fire.
Never.
Lots of life left.
And there's SCBA, so the oxygen tanks, there's boots, there's gloves, there's helmets, there's all. I mean, the amount of equipment is astounding.
That's
really.
our primary. Yeah, but we have other
stuff people don't
goals.
think of, right? Like the average civilian in Canada might not be aware of. I mean, you think we can all be guilty of this because we're so insulated and we're so protected from the reality of war. At least our generations, let me say, recognizing the veterans that have come before us, et cetera. But you hear of like, I sometimes lament the fact that we look at everything in numbers, like a drone strike killed 11, or an attack on a wedding killed 44, and it's like if you see the people's faces and read their names, you realize these are humans. We say, well, buildings like hospitals and schools. You told me, Nikki, that fire halls have been targeted by bombing. I mean, they're trying to take out the first responders. To me, it's like it doesn't occur to us that this could be a civilian that was. Maybe like a restaurateur or like a convenience store worker, or worked at a gas station 12 months ago, and now they're working as a firefighter or first responder, but maybe they don't have the adequate equipment, but they're being sent into some of the most extreme circumstances.
The thing is that numbers take away the humanity of it.
Yeah.
They're all people like us. So I think that's why we like to share as much as we can on our Facebook page and show pictures and connect. I mean, last week, 3 firefighters were killed demining. So firefighters going out and removing mines that have been planted by the Russians. And then also there was a fire hall that was targeted in Kherson. And one firefighter died and one was injured. And about, I think, 1,000 first responders have been killed since the start of the war. That was a number that I had heard. So...
we've got a whole bunch of people here. I mean, you hear this a lot. I'm sure Tony says, I honestly don't think I could do this. I don't know if I could do this. Brenda says, what a selfless act to go into a war-torn country. Luke I love this. Luke in TV Talk, Johnny, he's wondering if we can get a Chiron up with the organization's info. I love that, Luke. Luke, like, it sounded like he's in the control room. Right? I love that, Luke. You have my respect.
I know what a Chiron is, but Kevin's what's a Chiron?
What's a Chiron? Well, basically, let me just say, Firefighter Aid Ukraine is what you want to check out. FirefighterAidUkraine.com, and that's also where you can find them on Facebook. We're hanging out with Nikki Booth and Kevin Royle, who are here speaking on behalf of a whole bunch of people that are making things happen. You never know how a podcast is going to land. I was thinking, you never know who's going to hear it. And so if there was a number, and I suppose you're going to say you could have limitless resources and still maybe not meet the need, but if someone were to right now be listening and feel compelled to strike a check to make
1.5 million.
1.5 million?
No,
seriously.
No, seriously, that's what we would like to raise the next year, because this is one of 5 scheduled deployments around education. We have one
this
on
year.
Technical rescue, like rope rescue.
Yep.
We have another one on extrication and building stabilization, one on urban search and rescue.
Yeah.
We're helping out an orphanage called Misto Dobra. People can look it up. It translates to City of Goodness, but you can look up Misto Dobra. We're helping them with a bomb shelter and a whole bunch of fire alerting and fire.
A bomb
suppression.
shelter at an
And
orphanage,
yeah,
to be
just-
clear.
Yeah, we have pictures of
Yeah.
the kids being. When I was there last time, we were there when the kids had to get rushed into the bomb shelter that they
And-
had, the basement.
We should add that it's about 288 children, and most of them
It's
have
growing.
disabilities.
It's growing.
Right? They started with about 80. They're at 288 and growing.
Yeah.
And these are
So
children
new
with
orphans.
Yeah, these are children with disabilities as well. Can you imagine?
And women that have
Yeah.
been displaced with their children,
Yeah.
lost their husbands, or
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have a number of other projects too. So
Yeah.
we primarily base our primary goal is to supply equipment to hospitals, to firefighters, to first responders, and then we also have an educational component that started before the war, was put on hold because of the war, and we're getting it going now. So
We're also looking at trying to help restore the power grid and safe drinking water. I mean, there's a lot of places in Ukraine that have no power, or maybe have power for 4 hours a day. There's no heat. It's their winter. And imagine on top of that, no safe drinking water. Like all the things that are basics that we take for granted, people don't have every day. Can you imagine waking up with no heat, no power, and no safe
Well,
drinking water potentially?
Vitaly just got back. One of our members just got back, and he spent 6 days in Odessa without power,
Yeah.
without internet, without anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would imagine like this cause would resonate. Isn't that such an insufficient word, this cause, but this initiative, like what you're doing in Firefighter Aid Ukraine, and more important, or bigger picture, the plight of Ukraine resonates with Canadians and people around the world. But in particular, how does it land in Edmonton? Like, there's such a huge Ukrainian population here. You see Ukrainian
the
flags
largest.
flying all over the
Yeah.
place.
It's the largest population of Ukrainians living outside of Ukraine in Alberta.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but it's across. We're heading down to Houston probably right away because there's a huge Ukrainian population there.
Is that right?
Huge. So again, this is the Alberta government may be joining us down on this trip. The Consulate General from Ukraine here in Edmonton and the Consulate General down there, and we're going down hopefully to speak with the governments and the industry, the petroleum industry down there about finding equipment there as well.
Wow. It's the hustle never ends on this one, right?
No, when you
Because-
said that Kevin doesn't do vacations, when Kevin's on vacation, Kevin's
I go
still
to
doing all
war-torn
of
country.
this.
Yeah, I go to war and I go to
Or he
war-torn
goes to a
countries
war-torn
for
country.
vacation.
You know,
Well, I know, like
like,
full disclosure, like Kevin and our kids, they go to the same school, and like every time that Kevin's doing pickup, he'll say to me like, "What are you up to?" And I'll be like, "Yeah, I got hockey, play some golf." "What are you up to, Kevin?" "Wow, I'm rounding up fire trucks and bunker gear
Yeah.
and X-ray machines." And
Yeah. I'm constantly in awe because we have a WhatsApp chat, and Kevin's always pulling up different things and has new ideas, and is constantly working, and it's so inspiring.
It's my
and,
ADD, I think.
and I think
channeled in a good way.
you got what was it? What award did you get? We should talk about the award that you got recently. Was it not the Order of
You didn't
Canada?
tell me
It's
about
the
this.
Queen's.
Did you
Oh, the
believe
Diamond
it?
Jubilee
the
medal.
Diamond, yeah.
Myself and Chris
Chris
Perka.
Perka.
Hey,
Yeah.
I think
congratulations!
there's someone else on our crew going to be,
Yeah.
team going to be getting it as well. So.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, it's well deserved,
Yeah,
and
it is.
and you have obviously our full respect
Mm-hmm.
for starters, and our full support. And I know that the Real Talk audience is going to respond to this in a big way because I'm already seeing it landing that way in the live chat. You can, if you're on Facebook, search Firefighter Aid Ukraine. It's easy to find, and then of course firefighteraid.ukraine.com. It's nice and easy to make a donation, and as mentioned, these missions, Nikki, I'm not saying exactly when you're leaving, but you'll be leaving in the next little bit, and then it sounds to me like 4 to 8 weeks after you, there will be another contingent and
Yes.
another one.
And we'll share things when we get back. It's not safe for us to share
Yeah.
while we're there. It's not just protecting us, it's protecting the people that we leave behind.
You bet.
But if people follow us on Instagram as well, and we're on Twitter, but Instagram and Facebook, we will have photos and we'll provide updates of what happened with our trip. And because we want that transparency. I mean, people are helping us, people are supporting us to do these. So we want to make sure that they know how it went and what we saw and what we did. And that connection point is really important for us as well.
All right. Well, Godspeed, safe journey.
Thanks.
An amazing experience despite tragic circumstance and necessity. And
life-changing.
Keep in touch. Keep us posted because I know the audience will be grateful for updates as well.
Absolutely.
If it works, maybe you could check in while you're over there. I don't know.
I'll WhatsApp
if it
you
works,
if I can.
Yeah,
I'll
it sounds
send
like
you a
Kevin's saying some
WhatsApp.
of you guys have been dealing with 6 days without power. But if at all possible,
I'll WhatsApp you. I've got your number.
Nikki, the
so
door
it'll
is
be
always
okay.
open. Put it that way. All right. That's
Thanks.
Nikki Booth and Kevin Royle. You guys, thanks so much. Firefighter Aid Ukraine.com. This conversation is happening around our Real Talk round table. Of course, it's a beautiful table. The actual physical table I'm talking about, designed, constructed, built, delivered by the team at Urban Timber Reclaimed Wood. You can find them online at urbantimber.ca. I can show you the website right now so you can check it out. You can learn a little bit more about their team. Again, urbantimber.ca is the website. Johnny, toss the website up for me so I can show folks the website here. I want you to see this. They've got a brand new showroom open, and it's on weekends, a great opportunity for you to swing on by and actually touch these masterpieces. There's something really, really special about an urban timber table. It's one of a kind for starters. And number two, nobody else, except for those that have urban timber tables, can quite understand the impact that they have. Somebody walks into the room for the first time. Maybe this is your new living room table. Maybe this is just going to be in time for a big family celebration. They come in, it takes their breath away. The urban timber tables, plus, of course, shelving and side tables and custom flooring and siding and decking. And oh my goodness, the options are endless when you're dealing with urban timber. At Friesen Brothers, we want to let you know that, of course, we're coming up to the first of the month again in about 2 weeks from now. You're going to want to circle your calendar-ish, the 1st of February. Your next chance to knock 15% off grocery purchases of $75 or more. In the meantime, if you're looking for inspiration when it comes to healthy ideas, recipe inspiration, you want to break the mold, not the same old, go to their website, Friesen.com. That's Freson. Some great healthy ideas, and you can check it all out online at Friesen.com. Kevin Royle's giving me a signal through the glass doors here in the studio. They're throwing on their coats. They're on their way out. He says they're already receiving donations from Real Talkers. How great is that?
Amazing.
They're checking the website. Donations are
Awesome.
already coming in right now to firefighteraid.ukraine.com. How cool is that? Hey, back to the sponsors. Wanted to let you know that Athabasca University, they see a real uptick in enrollment and a lot of interest in their programs this time of year. Of course, it's the perfect time of year as people start to get serious about their goals, start to get serious about making positive changes or progress in their life. If that's on a personal level, if that's in a career context, you can take it to the next level with Athabasca University. It's Canada's anyone, anywhere, anytime open university for advanced learning. Of course, your learning is customized. The pace of it, the entire vibe of it, based on what works for you. You want to be pedal to the metal 5 days a week? You can do it. You want to take some time off, maybe take a break away from your studies, maybe the family calls, maybe opportunity knocks? No deal, no problem. You're not going to fall behind because at Athabasca University, you got the flexibility to learn at your own pace on a schedule that suits your lifestyle. Check out athabascau.ca. And a reminder, this Friday that we've got Trash Talk locked and loaded. Your chance to blow off whatever steam you need to blow off, to say what you want to say and have, well, a whole bunch of people hear it. It's presented proudly by our friends at Local Environmental Services. You can keep it local. You know, some people will say it's only garbage, right? You see those big bins out behind a business, a hotel, a restaurant, a retail store. Well, it's not just garbage to Local Environmental Services. They believe communities deserve better. To find out what that means, you can check out their website, including their services and an introduction to their leadership team. A great video online at localenvironmental.ca. Family-owned, doing business in Alberta and Saskatchewan. Well, this is a really great opportunity for us to keep a conversation going, to learn a little bit more about a subject that may be very relevant to you. It may not feel relevant at all, maybe until you find yourself in a circumstance, a loved one that desperately needs an organ transplant. You know, we talk a lot about signing your donor cards. We talk a lot about encouraging members of our society to do everything we can to ensure that these precious organs are available to people whose lives could very well be saved. It doesn't take too many words to paint a picture of the desperation somebody might feel, somebody who requires a heart or lungs, a kidney, a liver, to keep on living, to keep on making memories with their family. A story's popped up in the news in the province of Alberta. A woman who was on a wait list has been bumped off, and she's lost 2 subsequent court challenges because she's not received the COVID vaccine. It's a requirement if you want to stay on those wait lists in the province of Alberta. And so we've been talking about it this week, presenting different ideas and different opinions. What matters most in a conversation like this? The facts. And that's what our next guest has been pursuing. He's just published a paper a couple of weeks ago at jamanetwork.com. That's JAMA network.com. A wonderful friend of this show, Professor Tim Caulfield. Thanks for making time for us this morning, and it's nice to see your face. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, so this is really neat. I mean, I reached out to you because I've always enjoyed our candid exchanges. I appreciate how you approach myth busting and science education, but I'm going to be honest, Tim, I had no idea that you'd been doing a deep dive on this exact subject matter. Why was this on your radar?
Well, I've actually worked with the transplant community for a long time. I've had a number of research grants, and by the way, a fantastic, amazing community here in Alberta. So this is actually a topic that I've been studying for a while with my terrific team at the Health Law Institute. And of course, what it does, it brings together 2 areas of interest: transplantation, right, and all the noise and misinformation around vaccines. So it seemed like a perfect topic for our wonderful team.
So let's set the table here so we really understand what we're talking about. It is not consensus across jurisdictions to require COVID vaccination for eligibility for organ transplant, correct? I mean, I saw some of your reporting online. It looks like just in some circumstances, only 36%. So just over 1 in 3 of American transplant centers actually require it.
Now, we got to be careful. And it's funny that you pulled out that sentence because this is something our team talked about a lot. So that's what that really represents is, the explicit requirement. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's not the standard of care for that center. In general, you talk to transplant experts or transplant teams around the world, and it's completely standard, right, to require a whole host of vaccinations prior to transplantation for obvious reasons, right, Ryan? You're immunocompromised afterwards. You want to ensure that this precious resource is being used in the best way possible. So you require the transplant recipient to do a whole bunch of things, not just get a vaccine. So that 30%, I think, really represents centers that make it explicit beforehand. And one of our recommendations is that, this should be clear, given the controversy around it, really what the clinical position is for these transplant teams.
So you took a look at just about 75 different newspaper publications, right? We're talking about like digital media, news. We're talking about essentially reporting that the public is privy to, reporting or media coverage that could shape public opinion. Can you give us a sense of some of the general observations that you had as you started to study more and more reports?
Yeah, so our goal is, we started with a really big number, then we sampled down to newspaper reports that were explicitly about this, Ryan, right? So I want to be clear about that. This stuff is explicitly about the exact topic we're talking about. What's the public seeing, right? And what we found was something that we call false balance, which has been a real problem in the pop culture space over the last couple of years. And what is false balance is when you misrepresent what the science actually says, right? You sort of misrepresent where the scientific consensus actually resides, and you see it with climate change, and you see it a lot with vaccination. And what you do is you sort of elevate a fringe view to make it seem like, well, on the one hand, we have this position. On the other hand, we have that position. It's kind of a 50-50 kind of debate going on in the scientific community, when the reality is, 98% of transplant experts think, hey, vaccination is important, and there may be just a few fringe views. And that's exactly, unfortunate, that we found in these in the reporting on this, a lot of false balance, and that sort of misinforms public debate. It can sort of fire anger up, right? The other thing that happens in the context of transplantation, and we studied this a lot in the past, we've got some research out on this, is something called rule of rescue. Look, there is an individual here that it's easy to sympathize with this individual. You want to save as many lives as possible. So in general, society focuses on that one life, right? That person in front of them, the identifiable victim, right, Ryan? And that sort of dominates the public discourse, when we also have to remember there are a whole bunch of other people in line for these vaccines, and for these organs, and this is especially important in the context of transplantation, when there are so many, the resources are so limited and so precious.
Yeah, and here's like I'm trying to figure out how to approach this question to you, because I'll acknowledge, like, and you talk about false balance, and I'm really glad that we can go into this, because in life there's like the science and the emotion, right? Like I try to get not too far off track, but I think even in the art of reporting and storytelling, you need the facts and you need the emotion. And when you'll hear the journalist's voice in a television report, they're presenting the facts, and then they go to the person they interviewed on the street, and that's the emotion. That's the person that says, I'm never voting for this mayor again, or I'm super pissed off about this. And then members of the public go, oh yeah, because that provides the face of the story, right? And so we're talking about this and organ transplantation, and the emotion in this is the woman that's gone, has seen 2 losses in court, and she's fighting for her life in the sense that she needs an organ transplant. She believes in her world that she's doing the right thing, not getting vaccinated, right? That's the emotion. People say, are we okay as a society that someone who otherwise may be a candidate for transplantation cannot be on the list because she exercised her right to not be vaccinated? That's the emotion. Now, on the flip side, the facts are easily and readily available. Medical professionals will say, well, you have to take immunosuppressants, and obviously organs are in precious supply, and we don't have enough of them. And there's triage reality when it comes to medicine like this, and those are just the facts based by science. And when it comes down to developing policy, I think most people would agree that facts and evidence and science matter most. But that doesn't mean that the emotion is irrelevant, right?
You're 100% correct. You did a great job on that. And again, there's a lot of evidence to back that up. We know that a compelling narrative, a compelling testimonial, right, a compelling story is going to outweigh often what the science actually says on a topic. Lots of evidence to back that up. It's one of the really powerful cognitive biases out there, right? A compelling story is going to win the day. And that's what we have here. And I think it's also really important to emphasize, and we haven't talked about this yet, there's no science, no evidence to support her concerns about the vaccine. None, right? There's no medical, clinical reason for her not to get this vaccine. And by the way, she has received other vaccines. She's taking all these other drugs. There's no sort of compelling clinical reason why she's refusing this vaccination. It's likely informed by misinformation, and that's relevant too. And the courts touched on that at both levels, right? And I think it's also really important to emphasize that this isn't a form of discrimination that was highlighted in both the trial level and at the appeal level. That it's not an immutable characteristic. You're making a personal decision about that. That's not discrimination, right? And the Alberta Human Rights Commission has also said that this is not discrimination. It's not a protected action. So she really doesn't have a lot to stand on here. She doesn't, from a scientific perspective or from a legal sort of rights perspective. Despite all of that, you have, as you pointed out, this compelling story, this narrative, and you feel like, something needs to be done.
People can download the PDF of your full report, and that's what I'm looking at as I'm talking to you here. And it's fascinating stuff, and I'm grateful that it's been made available to the public. For those that are watching the live stream on YouTube, it's in the chat right now, the link to Professor Caulfield's work. And of course, for those of you listening or watching this later, check out the show notes, and we'll have the link so you can check it out yourself. What do you think is motivating? Like, this is me asking you for your opinion based on your observations. What do you think is motivating what you might describe as the false balance or the disproportionate tone of some of the media coverage that you've seen?
Exactly what you described, Ryan. People want to tell a compelling story, and I think journalists. And look, I work with the media a lot, and there's so many fantastic journalists out there. I think this is a system issue, not that individual reporters necessarily have a motivation, but they want to present both sides of a story, right? They want to create a compelling article about this story, and that tends to elevate the false balance. And I think that, you can still make it compelling and be truthful to what the science actually says. And what you want to do is you want to use a weight of evidence approach, right, to really highlight the degree to which the scientific community has a consensus on this. And by the way, I want to be really clear, this happens all over the place, and it's not just a right wing or left wing thing. It happens all. GMOs is a really good example, right? In fact, genetically modified organisms is the topic where there is the biggest gap between what the experts say, completely safe, no evidence to consider harm, and what the public believes, right? And most, about 50-50, think there's some harms associated, some dangers associated with GMOs. And that's largely, in part, driven by false balance in the representations of the controversy,
and probably marketing in a big way, right? Like
increasingly so.
A lot of products that are, you know this better than almost anybody, is if you, when you market a product, if you say that it's free of something, then it automatically inherently implies that something is bad, right? And it's kind of funny because you could see, like, I don't know, in a bottle of water, it might say GMO free on the front. Well, it wouldn't make any sense, but of course it's an effective marketing tool. Human beings we're so easily manipulated, aren't we?
Yeah, Ryan, that's part of my next book, actually. That's
really?
Due like in 3 weeks. So I have a whole section where I talk about it. You're absolutely right. It's called the health halo, right? And there's so many of them. Non-GMO, non-toxic. What does that even mean? I have no idea what that means, right? No chemicals added. Like, the whole universe is made up of chemicals. I don't know where you're going to eat that, on the lip of a black hole, right, where particles are being pulled apart. I don't know. So yeah, you're right. And unfortunately, it's very, very effective. It's a very effective marketing tool. And then what it kind of does is it ossifies that simplistic analysis of a topic. GMO is bad, non-GMO good, organic good, yeah, I got that right.
Sure. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like buzzwords, I think, that are used in marketing, and we as human beings, I don't know that we collectively, myself included, do a great job of sniffing them out and understanding how we're being manipulated. I think it's interesting to compare or contrast, marketing versus media reporting, because they're not inherently the same thing. This is an interesting conversation as well. We're talking about this false balance. We're talking specifically in your research, focusing specifically in the context of vaccine status and organ transplantation. But what about bigger picture? We're like 3 years into this pandemic journey, if you want to call it that. How would you assess the quality, the validity, the integrity of public discourse driven by media reporting present day, maybe even in comparison to how it was 2-3 years ago?
So we're talking legacy media here. We're not talking the trolls.
Well, forget the trolls. I mean, I want to keep the conversation
media,
where it belongs.
Platforms.
Sure.
So we actually have done a study on this too. We did a study on how, for example, natural herd immunity, right, was portrayed in the popular press. And once again, we found a lot of false balance. And, some of your listeners might remember, the controversy around this idea that it was better just to have natural herd immunity than get vaccinated, and that we were doing more harm than good. And no evidence to support that position. And in fact, on the contrary, it's a position that's associated with a large number of deaths, right? Humans dying. But despite that, again, it was portrayed in the popular press kind of on the one hand this, on the other hand that. And that, I think, did a lot of damage to public discourse on a really important topic. Having said all that, the media has been, and we followed this really closely from the start, not terrible. How would I put it that way? and
sounds like my report cards in high school. Not terrible.
Yeah, Ryan is not a terrible little boy.
Yeah.
He could listen more.
Yeah.
It is. They have been not terrible. By that, I mean, and we studied this right at the beginning from, early 2020, there wasn't that much misinformation, like inaccurate facts in the popular press. In fact, we were going to do a big study on how the popular press represented the facts. And out of the gate, they were pretty good. I think the legacy media recognized this was serious, and we got to take a little care in how we're representing the science. That's not to say that there weren't gaffes and there was too much definitive language around things like masks and what needs to be done. And we need to improve on that. Absolutely. But there was too much false balance, I think. on a number of topics, not doing a good job representing what the body of evidence actually said. Yes, we've given voice to a lot of, cranks and fear mongers. And so that's been definitely problematic. But there have been studies that have shown that if you get your news from the legacy media, from reputable sources, you're less likely to believe misinformation compared to if you get your news from social media. And there's been a lot of studies that have shown that. That's, you have to be careful there because, there's a sampling bias, but they've looked at this from a lot of different methodological directions. And that suggests that, the news that you're getting from the legacy media is more accurate and more informed and is going to lead to better decisions than versus getting your news from TikTok.
I said this in introducing you, and by the way, I probably didn't do you like the justice that you deserve in introducing you. I didn't like name your books and all your involvement in your Netflix show, or the fact that like on December 29th you were named a member of the Order of Canada. I probably should have led with that, but this audience feels like we know you, and so I just take it for granted and blow right into the interviews. What did that mean for you? I mean, that's an incredible honor to have bestowed upon you in recognition of your work in if I can say in colloquial terms, in myth busting.
Thank you for that, Ryan. It's really nice of you to say. I was, you don't do this, you don't do this stuff for the awards. And I had I don't know if you know the process. I had no idea, right? No idea
really?
This was coming. None. I had no inkling. Sometimes when you're involved in, helping someone put together a package for an award, you have no idea this is happening. They investigate you for, I think like 18 months. And I'm sitting in a strip mall coffee shop in LA, right? I just gave a talk the night before, and misinformation, people are yelling at me. I just had a crappy week, and it was one of those moments in life like, why the hell am I doing this?
Yeah.
The harassment, the hate. And I got an email from the Governor General's office, and it was urgent. And I thought, oh my God, this is going to be about some committee or there's some policy crisis. And believe it or not, I was thinking, I'm not going to answer this because I just don't have the emotional strength right now to deal with it. So, oh God, I'll give them a call. And I'm standing in a parking lot in LA, and I get the news. And I got to tell you, I got a little emotional right there in that parking lot.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I love that. And fuck the haters anyway. Hey, I want to ask you this. One of the reasons why we reached out to you and thought of you for this conversation is just because I've appreciated our exchanges in past. Right, I know you to be contemplative and empathetic, but you're also someone that'll draw a line in the sand, and you believe that right is right and wrong is wrong, and fact is fact, and fiction is exactly that as well. And what I thought was kind of like me speaking personally, here's the real talk on this, is that I've been unapologetic in my views on vaccines and things like that. I mean, the entire conversation through the course of the pandemic. I remember when I was saying this to a friend yesterday, when restaurants and movie theaters and public entertainment venues were getting set to potentially reopen, and we were talking about things like vaccine passports. And, some people, unvaccinated folks, were crying out and saying, well, this is discrimination. I can't go to the restaurant. I can't whatever. I mean, honestly, like my response to that was like, tough shit. Like it honestly, I was unapologetically in support of things like vaccine passports and the like, mask policies before we had the vaccine. I mean, I've been very strongly in support of that. But like something about this vaccine story just rubbed me the wrong way. And I will be honest, I didn't anticipate, neither Charles Adler, nor I anticipated the blowback that we would receive based on our impromptu, spontaneous conversation on Monday. I don't think that's a bad thing, because I think that this is how conversations happen in real life. I think that this is how people educate themselves and learn about things in real life. But the one thing that stuck with me is the legacy of COVID, and it's what I've been reflecting on over the last 48 hours or so. And I asked about it, the general public in a tweet, like, do you perceive there to be, and I'm not trying to ask the question in a divisive way, but two classes of people or two types of people. Dr. Bradley Martin, a physician out of Hinton yesterday, I asked him if he felt that way. He said no. He said, in my practice, there's just one group of people. They're my patients, and they're treated as such. But as policy unfolds, I mean, this transplant list, this is just one example. I mean, life insurance rates could be higher for people that are unvaccinated. There could be other implications as time unfolds. Are you comfortable? I'm asking you a personal question. With the direction it's moving in, do you believe it to be proportionate and reflective of the science, or do you share some of my discomfort in either specific scenarios or bigger picture scenarios about what society will look like moving forward?
Well, I think you touched on a really important word there. If these policies are rooted in good science and good public health, it makes sense, because you have to remember these are personal decisions, right? And the other thing I think that isn't said enough is that very often these positions are informed by misinformation. And I'm not just speculating here. There's a relatively robust body of evidence that tells us that. Earlier in the pandemic, yes, there were issues of access. There were issues of even needle phobia, which is a real issue, right? There were issues of inequities and poor distribution. And of course, there are also issues of distrust, justified distrust between communities and institutions, right? Those issues remain, and we have to be vigilant to make sure that we address them in an appropriate way. But if you look at the research, most people that aren't vaccinated now aren't vaccinated because they believe misinformation. It's often for ideological reasons. The Venn diagrams overlap incredibly tightly. So we have to remember that. Now, that doesn't mean we shouldn't be empathetic and we shouldn't listen, but that does mean we need to figure out ways that we can communicate with those communities to make sure that their decisions aren't informed by misinformation and informed by the science, right? I think that's really important. And we also have to remember that society makes decisions like this all the time in liberal democracies. You need a driver's license to do things, right? You have to get vaccines to go to certain countries, right? You have to get other vaccines to do other kinds of things. On and on and on. We have food safety laws, right? We have seatbelt laws, and people go, "Oh, that's a false equivalency. It's not the same thing." The debate around seatbelts, Ryan, when they were first being introduced, very similar to the debate around vaccines. Oh, seatbelts do more harm than good. You can't get out of the car. You're infringing on my liberty. If the airbags worked, masks, why do we need seatbelts, right? On and on and on. In fact, we need both, right? We need both. We need the airbags and the seatbelts. So I think we need to be very careful to understand, what the concern is. Now, if it's arbitrary, if the science isn't there to back it up, if it seems like some kind of vengeful policy where we're trying to punish people for their, I don't support that, because that's not a constructive way forward for society more broadly, right? But if it's a public health based decision, it makes sense. Insurance companies, for example, they make these kinds of discriminatory decisions all the time. Insurance is based on discrimination. That's
insurance
how it works.
Is the most discriminatory industry on planet Earth.
Yeah, that's the point in a way, right? So it becomes, we have to be careful that we don't just say, and why is it just the COVID vaccine, right? Why are we having just the legacy I'm more worried about is the impact that these kinds of conversations have on vaccination hesitancy more broadly. We know that pregnant women aren't getting vaccinated as much. We know that the the measles vaccines rates are going down. This is going to kill people. Right? This misinformation. It's the misinformation about COVID's bleeding into other areas. So is the distrust fostered by these fearmongers. And that's the legacy I'm really worried about.
I don't have the numbers in front of me, so I'm like, but I do know trend wise, and I'm certain the evidence would support that that uptake on boosters is like really pathetic. I don't have the actual numbers in front of me, but most Canadians have their first shot, most Canadians have their second, but the booster numbers just plummet. They hit the floor. Why do you think that is?
I think this is a sort of practical, tangible result of all the misinformation and distrust that has festered around COVID. That's one of them, right? I also think there's completely understandable COVID fatigue, and again, research shows that that's the case. There's a study that came out not that long ago. I think about half the country doesn't think about COVID anymore. I think there's all those elements at play. And I also think they've done a terrible job, the public health officials, I'm pointing at my community a little bit, talking about the booster. I don't even like the term booster, to be honest with you. we get the flu vaccine every year. I think we should have reframed it a little bit differently and just made it clear that this is just something that you get. And I think it's really, really important to also emphasize we have incredible survey. This has been the most studied vaccine in human history. When people talk about it being experimental, it's been incredibly studied. We have tremendously robust surveillance mechanisms, so robust that we're able to, detect these little, these blips that get investigated. And the safety profile is there is the bottom line, right? So I think we did not do a good job representing the boosters, and also talking about the benefits of the booster, right? Yes, it doesn't stop you from getting COVID. But it definitely has a huge impact on hospitalization. It has an impact on death rates. It has also an impact. Look, people say, oh, it doesn't stop transmission. There is some evidence it also has an impact on transmission because of viral load. All of those reasons make getting a booster a very, very good idea.
The more you're talking, I keep revisiting your seatbelt analogy, and I'm like, man, it works at a number of levels, doesn't it? But it's wild to think about, isn't it? When we talk about changing attitudes in society that don't take that long. I mean, I'm not old, but I'm not young. But in my serving and bartending days, I worked smoking sections. Like I'm that old. Yeah. Landlines and the whole 9 yards. But it actually wasn't that long ago that people would be cruising around, no seatbelts in the car. I mean, think about how uncomfortable the average person would be right now, hurtling down the highway at 110 kilometers an hour with no seatbelt on. Windows rolled up, cigarettes burning. You go 20 years further back, probably beers cracked in all the seats. I mean, it's unbelievable how quickly things change, right?
It is. And, the seatbelt analogy also from a political perspective is very, very simple. You could snip the language used arguing against seatbelts and place it in the public health debates that we're having right now. Incredibly similar. So it's not a total false, comparison. And of course, there's the biomedical aspect that people say is different, right? Which is true, right? It's true. It's another element when you're talking about the vaccines. But given that incredible safety profile, I don't think we should forget that that also makes it more comparable.
Remind us what the new book is called and when people can pick it up.
I don't know what it's called.
Really?
Like 70,000. It's funny. I just got a note from my editor right before I came on, and people say, "Hey, what's the book about?" I don't know. Like 70,000 words in.
It's funny. I would always you understand this quickly when I would interview print reporters, and I would say, John Smith is the author of this piece in X newspaper. The headline reads da da da, and I would say, "Why would you write?" And the journalists always say, I don't write my headlines. I'd be like, okay, do you name your books or does someone else name your books?
I do. And so, this is something I should be able to tell you.
Okay. Well, you can give us the inside scoop next time we talk. Honestly, you were literally the first person that came to mind when we wanted to have this conversation. And of course, you deliver a driving dialogue based on evidence and from an empathetic perspective as well. A member of the Order of Canada, Professor Timothy Caulfield, wonderful friend of this show. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks for having me on, Ryan.
You got it. There he is. You can follow Tim, by the way, on Instagram and Twitter at Caulfield Tim, and just Google him, and you'll be able to learn all about his Netflix show and like his past books. I think the first book I interviewed him on was "Is Gwyneth Paltrow Wrong About Everything?"
Yeah, I was reading his books
book
right
on
now
celebrity culture, which is so good. Relax, Damn It was his most recent one, but then
I just ordered this.
You just
I
literally,
just ordered this while we're talking
because
because as he was talking about that, this is a big thing for people who are plant-based, especially. We get inundated with all this crap that GMOs are bad. This is like if you're a plant-based person and you follow any plant-based pages, basically don't eat food because everything is bad in some way, right? So me and my wife have had to navigate through all those things. We figured out that like GMOs aren't that bad for you. Like, eat organic if you want, but like GMOs, like we needed them for farming to go to the next level. It's literally why farming is the way it is today. But I was just reading, I was like, I haven't seen this book. So I just ordered it. If you guys want to go, penguinrandomhousecanada.ca. And it's great because they give you options on there. You don't have to order from Amazon or Chapters.
You can order from your favorite
There's
bookstore. There's
literally a button to hit shop local. And I just put in the postal code, ordered it from a local shop. I'm not going to say the name. And I
say the name.
No. I'm not going to.
Okay.
For a specific reason, but I'm going to go pick it up after the
For
show.
a specific reason. Oh, I can't wait to get off air so you can tell me the reason. But no, that's awesome. And, and he's just obviously a really sharp guy, and I love the way that he,
guy, right?
he's a no-nonsense guy. Yeah, the GMO conversation.
It just,
man, oh man.
We used to
But if you talk to anybody in agriculture, they're like, come on.
Yeah.
Like, do a bit of reading. And do some research. And
when
now someone's going to come at us and they're going to describe you as a slave to Monsanto, and you're going to have to dig your way out of this one,
GMOs
buddy.
were literally created so we could, continue to have, successful farming. That's what happened. And,
sure.
I mean,
And this is going to be a conversation. We'll definitely get expert voices on this. What we should do is put together a roundtable on the future of sustainable ag, because the more that you read about what's happening to valuable topsoil and cropland, and to the profession of farming and the financial implications and big business and the whole nine yards, the future of food is a fascinating. I almost feel like we'd need a week to try to tackle that subject matter.
And the GMO thing, like we used to go to the grocery store and we'd look at like the organic stuff versus like, the other stuff that comes from Mexico or wherever. And like, why is the broccoli so big? Why are the Brussels sprouts and asparagus huge? That has to be GMOs and chemicals. But then like now I literally follow plant-based people who have gardens in their backyards down in California and in the States. And they're growing food twice as big as that. Naturally. So there's all these things that, like I said, are myths out there, and they need to be busted by people like Tim.
Now, square watermelons, on the other hand.
That's weird.
I read that the originator, the inventor of the square watermelon, did it so they can stack more easily, so they can ship more easily. Which you would think, in theory, if they're shipping more easily and more efficiently, they're probably saving on carbon output with regards to the amount of packet. Anyway, whatever. I'm getting into a rabbit hole, but I was thinking
watermelons.
It's like what did you do with your life? I cured Alzheimer's. What did you do? I invented square watermelons. But both of them valuable services. I really appreciate everybody that's including the reminders here that if you like the interviews you're hearing, go ahead and hit the like button on YouTube. We're not embarrassed to ask you to do that. If you hit like and subscribe, if you share our content and tell your friends, the show has a bigger reach and these conversations resonate more strongly. Curtis says that I should tackle the milk cartel. Curtis wants me to talk about supply management. I should. I'll get my cousin on here, the Jesperson dairy farmers. That's been the family history for generations, and they're not afraid to talk about it. They'll come on and talk about it. We'll do a roundtable on supply management. How much does the average Canadian know about supply management? Probably not enough.
No. When
politicians bring it up, though, right, whether it's Maxime Bernier or Andrew Scheer or whoever it is that brings up supply management, opposite sides of that coin, by the way. You remember Andrew Scheer guzzling a 1 liter of skim milk at the
it was all downhill from there.
It's one of my favorite political captures. Like, one of my favorite photos is Andrew Scheer just holding this quart of milk, just sculling it at the podium. It's just it just says so many things, doesn't it? It's pretty funny stuff. Hey, is all this talk about food and drink, it's a good thing it's a Wednesday. It's perfect timing for us to head out to the mountains. Every Wednesday we make MyJasper Memories, courtesy of our friends at Tourism Jasper. And you probably know, if you regularly tune into the show, because we've been getting excited about this for a while, this is a big month for our friends in Jasper. It's the annual Jasper in January celebration. Now, everything that we're talking about here, you can check out online at jasper.travel/January. But I wanted to put 2 specific events on your radar. One of them I'm going to be at. So, Real Talkers, I would love to meet you at this. This is coming up on the 13th of January. This is Vinophilia for the love of wine. It's at Evil Dave's Grill, the new location on Connaught Drive. It's an absolutely stunning location. Evil Dave has done a beautiful job with that. Vinophilia for the love of wine. Indulge your wine craving. Come and sample wines from around the world. Learn from experts about their unique offerings. You can mingle with your pals, enjoy a variety of delicious snacks at this cocktail-style kind of a mingler event. There's going to be a full-service bar open through the evening if you're like Johnny and the wine's not enough. You need to crush a few old fashions. If your cravings are there, you'll be able able to venture beyond wine that's under $60. And you can check it out at jasper.travel/January. And then, hey, all this talking about Ukraine today and celebrating Ukrainian culture. Check out Mountain Malanka. This is an amazing opportunity through Jasper in January, presented by UFest, Edmonton Ukrainian Festival. It's the inaugural event, a Ukrainian New Year's celebration in Jasper. This is going to be absolutely fantastic on the 21st of January. It's a family-friendly event that's going to kick off with a traditional Ukrainian bread and salt welcome. You can enjoy Ukrainian food and drinks all night long, of course, and then the entertainment of the Volia Ukrainian Dance Ensemble and the Ukrainian Male Chorus of Edmonton. I get chills when I think about how they sing. It's unreal. Then party, polka, dance the night away to the musical stylings of Edmonton's Euphoria Band, an unforgettable way to celebrate the new year, Ukrainian style. $90 for adults, $60 for youth. Kids under 5 get in free. You can find all the details, and then, of course, book your tickets today at jasper.travel/January. I didn't mean to throw you under the bus there on the old-fashioned mention. I just happen to know that sometimes the full-service bar at the wine events are appealing to people that may want to go to mix and mingle, but they want to shake it up a little bit. You know what I'm saying?
I haven't thought about an old-fashioned since Saturday. I don't think I will for another couple days.
Yeah, we had a decent time.
Yeah.
So what we wanted to remind people about as well is here on the show, you know, this week has been a great reminder of the beauty that is a format like this, where a subject can pop up. We start talking about something, and then that's just the beginning, right? This isn't a show that takes subject matter and ties it up neatly with a bow in under 10 minutes' time. We think about things, we ruminate on them, we investigate them, we pursue them. You know, on the editorial standpoint, bringing in guests that understand the types of things we have questions about, and then collectively as a group, we learn. We better our understanding of things. Now, a big part of that is the audience participation, and we're so grateful. On two fronts, I wanted to provide two quick reminders. Number one, you can email us anytime to talk@ryanjesperson.com. We try to respond to all of the emails we receive. We can't respond to every single one, but we do our best. We read every email that we receive to talk@ryanjesperson.com. Number two, we have Real Talk official studio issue mugs, and every month we award a Real Talk email of the month. Now, it's a somewhat arbitrary process, but what we do is set aside emails that really resonate with us and really stir a reaction, positive or otherwise, with our audience. In other words, emails that really get you to think. You can qualify automatically to win a Real Talk Studio mug through the Email of the Month award by sending us your thoughts. And, of course, the inbox goes without saying open 24/7. These conversations happen because of sponsors like our friends at Park Power that remind you that this is a perfect time of year to check out exactly what your utility situation looks like. I mean, if you were put on the spot, would you be able to tell your friends if you were on like a regulated rate or a variable rate? I mean, fixed electricity rate, but do you know? Or is that something that just when the bill shows up, or maybe it's even auto-debited out of your account, you see the number going up, you see that it's costing you more, but did you know that you could be spending less? Park Power virtually guarantees it. Their current fixed electricity rate plans are almost half the cost of the regulated rate option. It takes 2 seconds to compare rates today at parkpower.ca. And don't forget, you don't have to worry about being locked into a contract with Park Power when you choose a fixed rate plan. You can switch rates or cancel anytime for free. Nobody does customer service quite like the friendly local utilities provider that is Park Power. Hey, same deal goes with the family-owned team at Eden Landscaping. Mike wants to remind you there, you know, he started this business more than 20 years ago and has been sustaining it with referrals and return business. Why? Because of the way that the experience goes for people that hire this custom landscape builder. You're not having to hire a general contractor and then a landscape architect. You're not having to worry about the trades and whether or not your supplies are going to show up on time. This is a full-service provider. They want you to work with them. They're great listeners. They're not designing your yard for a magazine, though it'll be certainly ready for one. They're designing it for you. And they never lose sight of their goal, which is making your vision come to life. That happens through thoughtful, flowing vision, and that starts with a conversation that you can kick off today by visiting Eden Landscaping at landscapeedmonton.ca. It's also a perfect time of year to start thinking about your sustainable energy goals. And Kubi Energy wants to remind you that if you want to get solar panels up on your roof as early as possible this spring, it starts with a free quote today at kubienergy.ca. You can also give them a call at 1-833-999-KUBI. You know, they've got that Canada Greener Homes Grant. This is a great opportunity with the federal government making interest-free loans available for Canadians that want to go green. Up to $40,000 payable back over 10 years without any interest. But the chances are your solar power system's not going to cost that much. You know, the average solar power system's between 12 and 20 grand these days, and they pay themselves off more quickly than ever before. If you have questions, you can get quick answers from the team at Kubi Energy at kubienergy.ca. John, how many dairy-free dilly bars do you expect to be crushing this weekend?
It's insider information. I'm going to keep that between me and my family, but
okay, you and your family. I can respect that. I can respect your privacy. I'll tell you that if I got my hands on a box of 6 dilly bars from the Dairy Queens of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park, they wouldn't stand a chance. They wouldn't see Sunday. Put it that way.
I can tell you, we've been twice, and then we were out and went back.
Yeah.
So.
Hey, nothing wrong with stock in the freezer, because it's always a popular choice, whether it's for you, a late night craving, whether it's a treat for the kids, whether it's an impromptu dessert after a family lunch. Whatever it is, dilly bars and DQ sandwiches are always a hit. And for the month of January, at the Dairy Queens in Palisades, Nemeo, Newcastle, Westmount, and Baseline Road, if you buy one box of 6 dilly bars or DQ sandwiches, you're going to get the second box absolutely free. There are no strings attached. Speaking of Dairy Queen, it kind of reminds me of...
Except for your guilt.
I mean, if you crush 12 in one sitting,
I don't mind the 12.
You might deserve to feel a little...
because it's January, and I'm still like trying, everyone's trying to think health. And
You've been doing a really good job.
Yeah. Well, they're plant-based, so I just keep telling myself that.
Yeah, but I noticed yesterday you had a very healthy lunch. It appeared to be so.
You are watching my, Yeah,
well, I'm trying to be a good influence on you.
I've got the grains. I've got the veggies.
You got the sparkling water at your desk.
I've been drinking tea instead of coffee,
shelf.
instead of drinking 4 coffees a day. Yeah.
How are you doing off the coffee? You doing okay?
Yeah, it's hard.
We can't tell, though.
It's hard. Yeah.
Yeah?
My energy level's still good?
I would say your energy level is still off the charts, which makes me wonder, maybe you don't need coffee after all, like some of the rest of us.
Well, I'm drinking a pretty souped up chai here. It's not like just a lemon tea or something. It's got a lot of caffeine. So
it's like healthy with an asterisk.
Yes.
Yeah. Before we go, we wanted to remind you that this date is fast approaching, and I know John and I are both excited about it. The Real Talk Pond Hockey Classic is coming up on Saturday, February 4th. You can check out the details at ryanjesperson.com. You just go to the events page, and that's where you'll find it. It's really easy to link through to the registration page. We've got room for 36 teams of 4 or 5 skaters. And that's going to sell out. It does every year. This is in support of the Canadian Progress Club out of St. Albert. Kids sport, providing access to kids, removing barriers to sport, and uncles and aunts at large are going to be the 2 benefactors, the 2 recipients of the dollars that we raise for charity at this annual pond hockey event. Think Dairy Queen burgers, think cold beers, think blazing bonfires, and think the sounds of the ODR, the outdoor rink.
It's going to be great.
And Johnny Infamous spinning tunes, too. It's going to be pretty cool. If it's warm out, it's going to be perfect. And if it's cold out, we got heated tents.
Yeah.
So your comfort is not in question. But what we're really excited about is seeing more and more Real Talkers get serious and sign up about this before it's too late. Today's a great day to check out the Pond Hockey Classic, Real Talk's annual tradition at ryanjesperson.com. Coming up on tomorrow's show, I'm really excited about a chance to check in with Jay Ingram. You know him. I mean, we're talking about people that have made an impact across the country for their commitment to telling positive stories around science. This guy qualifies, and he's talking about brain health in a new partnership he's going to tell us all about. Our Friday Roundtable is going to celebrate some of the edifiers in this month's issue of Edify Magazine. We'll see you soon.
Real Talk is hosted by Ryan Jesperson, executive producer Josh Dunford, technical producer John Hicks, general manager Katie Cook-Chivers, account coordinator Lawrence Derlego, human resources Lena Shepard, website design Mike Johnston, voiceover by me, Carrie Skelton. Real Talk's editorial board is Supriya Dwivedi, Ahmed Ali, Brandy Morin, Ann Castleman, Corey Hogan, Harman Candola, Catherine O'Neill, and Chris Henderson. Member Emerita, Julie Rohr. Real Talk is recorded in Edmonton, Alberta on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional and ancestral territory of the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, and Nakota Sioux, home to the Métis settlements and the Métis Nation of Alberta. Real Talk is a relay project. For more, check out ryanjesperson.com.